I haven't lived a normal life for so long that it's impossible for me to relate. I get ideas that I'm being stared at or being laughed at or being talked about. And if I don't get that feeling, I'm afraid of being stared at and laughed at and talked about. If somebody gives me a side glance, I say, oh, here comes the weirdo or something. Anybody would be my best friend if they said to me just good morning to me. I depended so much on the waitress to say good morning to me, just to say boo to, just to say hello to. I can't understand people playing, having fun, the young people. I can't understand people enjoying themselves. I can't understand people smiling. It's all beyond me. And I feel I'm just not part of the human race. I envy their lack of torment. That they can they can cope with, they can handle small things without being tortured by them. Because they're used to it, they've done it all their lives. I haven't. Small things. Taking care of the family, buying something for a child, a birthday, a holiday, a family reunion, a man and a wife and kids. They got their home, all these things to live with. Big things that are little things. I haven't got any of this. They've grown into people, and I've grown into a mental case. Wait a minute, sure I remember. That's when my Gestalt doctor, psychiatrist, he's right back in the chair. I remember, now I remember it.
You ever live on the street?
Close to. I live in Cabbagetown. I never in the street really. I either Scott Mission Salvation Army, but I slept out on the street only once. I never slept in the street. That's the way. Eating at the Good Shepherd is just as good as sleeping on the street.
I know my parents used to live in a tent in summertime when we were younger.
But you know the best way. The world don't go on medication. This world's gonna die. Well, it's not gonna be a survival because you got the okay. Listen, you got the Indians. Where are they? They're on reservation. You get the black folks in New York City. Where are they? They're in the slums, okay? You get the Russians. Where are they? They're all being communists, killing each other, okay? That's 3 factors right there. If we don't go on medication now, the world's going to come to an end.
Doctor? Excuse me, doctor. Is that a doctor? Oh, I thought it was. Can I have this chair, please? Can I have this chair? Thank you.
Schizophrenia generally begins in early adult life or late adolescence. One of the most difficult groups to treat are the young, chronic, male schizophrenics, of whom Mitch is such a tragic example. Mitch killed himself when he was in his mid-20s. He was one of those we couldn't reach, we couldn't help. His sufferings obviously became too much, and he wanted to die rather than live the kind of life that he has shown us in his drawings and paintings and sculptures. They are frighteningly vivid portrayals of what it must have been like to have been Mitch.
When he was about 16, Mitch lived in the house here with us, and living became impossible every day.
It was the inability for him to follow through with anything on a daily basis. And every experience was a new one. The garbage. It caused such a riot in his house. He couldn't remember from one day to another to take out the garbage. He never went to school. He slept all day. When he did go to school to write an exam, he got a 95. And the psychiatrist would say, so what do you care? He went to school. He got a 95. Isn't that what counts? And a schizophrenic, at least as severely ill as Mitch, was very much self-absorbed. Very, very much self-absorbed. I mean, if he got a friend that would accept him, he would call that friend 25 times a day, all the way up until 3 o'clock in the morning, until the friend would finally have to say to him, hey, Mitch, this is too much, this is too heavy, you're coming on too intense. And then he would suffer this incredible rejection, really not understand what was so inappropriate. If you've got a friend, you've got a friend. He lived with such ambivalence that it just must have been such a hurt in his head all the time. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. That's what was going on inside of him all the time. I'll never forget a doctor saying to me, Judy, you cannot deal with this illness with rational thinking. Don't even try, put it away. Don't even discuss it. It is not a rational illness. Jesus, God, Satan, there wasn't a thing that he didn't try. Buddhism, Zen Buddhism, every Far Eastern culture and religion that there was, he sought for an answer, and there was no answer from what was in his head. You could not escape from schizophrenia, excepting for death. That was his only way out. He was, torture, hell with what went on in his head. And especially at the end, the voices, he seemed to not be able to hide it, and he had covered it so well all these years. And he would never admit that he heard voices or had delusions. But at the end, he was actually communicating with them on the telephone, and he was talking to me, and he couldn't cover it anymore. He said to me, Mom, do you know? And I said, yes, Mitch, I know you're not the Messiah. You don't know I'm not the Messiah. Maybe I am the Messiah. Do you know I'm not the Messiah? And you could hear him communicating with somebody else and then throwing it back at me. And I just always wondered, what are you supposed to say? What are you supposed to do? You can't say, don't be ridiculous, you're not the Messiah. You have to have an understanding. If you've lived through this, you know what the pain is for him, because he's struggling with, is he or isn't he? He got himself to look like it. He had the beard and the long hair, and I mean, he actually just about moved into that whole image of himself. I can honestly say that I just feel I turned this world upside down and shook it for him. There wasn't a doctor I didn't speak to, a hospital I didn't go to look at, a new, innovative, non-conservative method that I didn't research to see if it was too crazy to even consider using. There wasn't a thing that I, as a parent, didn't do. And I feel that there was just no stone I left unturned. A long time ago, a lot of doctors who saw Mitch started preparing our family that someday he may not be here anymore, because his drive for suicide was one of the most incredible that they had ever seen. And they didn't know if all the hospitalization and the locked up wards would ever really prevent that inertia, because when he was psychotic and that need overcame him, it was so strong that he many times couldn't fight it, and they couldn't keep him locked up forever. And so they really felt that someday he may be able to successfully take his life. When I say successfully, I mean that the other times, I mean, one time he jumped off a bridge, and he was in the hospital for almost a year. His pelvis was flipped open. He demolished his legs. He wiped out his elbow. So many physical injuries that he had endured. He was 6 months in a body cast. To go put a psychotic person in a body cast for 6 months, I mean, that was devastating for him. And there's no way to fix it. No way to fix the thinking. There's no repair job that you can do. And doctors and people who know so much more than lay people, they can't fix it either. And that's the frustration, the minimal amount that's known about the illness, to be able to make it better. You can't. And as a mummy, you can't even kiss it, make it better. You can't do anything except be there and have an unconditional relationship because he knew that no matter what, he was loved. That was it. He was loved.
Hello, Sue.
How are you
How are
today?
you?
Come on in.
Well, is this I'm getting in here?
I only wish that we had a way of controlling schizophrenia that didn't involve giving people drugs that sometimes have very difficult side effects.
Yeah. And they went up and up and
And
up.
you're up and up and up.
This place is supposed to make you well, not supposed to mummify you.
It's possible to make the case that one doesn't need to give drugs at all. But I believe it would be against all the ways we work in this society were we to allow people to suffer the kind of anguish that schizophrenic patients suffer without giving them the help, even though it's imperfect help, that is available.
Without soda today.
No soda, okay.
I'm going to be giving...
With ice then.
with ice?
I don't want to take it straight.
Okay, I'm just going to get you to stand and face the cupboard. Okay.
Okay. Does it make
I'm
any...
going to be giving it to you on your left side.
Well, after all this time, you're still sticking to that, eh?
Oh, you know me, I changed sites.
Yeah, sights, that's right. Tell me, is the view any different?
Same view as me. Okay, do you want to take a deep breath?
Ooh.
See, where's your cigarette?
It's in my pocket. I can feel it, bro. It's waiting to be smoked. After all, I'm not just three. I'm smoked three. Like a herring.
There you go. Okay.
Now I'm ready for any kind of surgery.
That was
As
good.
long as you're the nurse, I don't mind being operated. Okay.
You're very relaxed.
I'll see you.
We'll see you in 4 weeks, V.
I gotta wait that long?
That's
I'll
all.
have a breakdown before that. I'll see you.
Take care.
The drugs do help people. They don't cure, but the consistent use of carefully monitored medication will control many of the symptoms of schizophrenia. Many of the symptoms, but not all of them.
I crave very badly to be a functioning part of a functioning world, of a functioning society. Functioning seems a pretty mechanical word. A productive, living, useful kind of life, which I can't do and be. And this makes me dwell on my misery. I want to, and I will. Someday, I still believe that the moment will come, I'll get the chance I need when I'll get the motivation to read. It's late in life. It's 50 years old. But I'll find it myself once I'm really able to, once I really care about myself.
So you want to try and do it with us? Okay. Tiger's mouth.
There are some common misconceptions about what it's like for the schizophrenic to live in the day-to-day world.
Commencement of Tai Chi.
One of these misconceptions is that the symptoms are just the result of some willful eccentricity, and that with some control and energy, if they would only pull up their socks, the schizophrenic could decide to be like everybody else. Part of this is simply due to the fact that most of the people we see who are suffering from schizophrenia have been treated with medication, and one sees a very damped down version of the illness. The other misconception is that there's something very marvelous about being schizophrenic, that it's a poetic, spiritual, wonderful, rich experience. Neither of these notions is, I believe, true to the facts. Most schizophrenics lead a very marginal existence. Their vulnerability, their frailty, leave them hostages to our charity and compassion.
I know who I am. I'm afraid. Scared of a very old story. Of finding somebody and being rejected. And then it hit me a few months ago. I'm 50 years old now. I've never had a real girlfriend. And since then, I've stopped caring. When that realization hit me, 50 years old, I've never been close to a woman. I didn't even know what a woman was like. A woman was a waitress to me. That's all. I had a dream. But that life is but a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. And this about sounds is the summary of my experience in life. Full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. And it's become a tale told by an idiot.
I feel like I'll get out of the hospital pretty soon. In the hospital, nothing really stimulates me in there.
I think my schizophrenia has awakened my awareness of little things, the importance of the little things. How good it is to get up in the morning. How good it is to have a job to go to. How good it is just to be able to carry on a conversation with a friend. How valuable a friend can be. What it's like to communicate with other people rather than being in a world all of your own. For the first time in my life, 38 years, I've begun to have some feelings towards a fella. And it's a new and kind of frightening thing. Kind of exciting.